And good morning, everybody. We're live. Congratulations. You made it through another week, a week of fantastic food safety, food quality, having people out there in the trenches, building and creating all the wonderful food products that we love every single day. And we all know that it's a very unheralded job, but we're here today. Ryan and I are going to let you know we appreciate all that you do. So thank you very much for making sure that we're safe. If you're new, welcome. This is the Food Safety Chat Live, and I am Brian Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group, and we are here mostly every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we meet with amazing food safety experts and we bring information to you. And if you're new to the show, that's something that you're going to really like about this, is this is meant to be interactive. It's not meant to be a lecture. It's sharing of information because, as Ryan knows too, food safety, not a point of competition. The consumers, they don't care. They just expect safe food every single day, and it's our job to deliver it as an industry. So we're here to help push that forward. So one of the things that we love to do on the chat here is let everybody know where you are at. I am back. I was gone last week, and we'll get into that a little bit. I'm back in Loveland, Colorado. It's going to be a relatively warm day here again, but not as warm as I was, that's for sure. And today I'm joined with Ryan Dunn, and he's the VP of Sales with DeVere Company up in Wisconsin. How you doing today, Ryan?
Good. How are you? Good morning.
Good. How's your weather out there?
It's actually pleasant today. We're going to be high 70s, beautiful sunny skies.
Nice. How's the humidity?
We had some tornado action earlier this week, so it's nice for the state to kind of have some cleanup days. So.
Yikes. So hopefully nothing too close, or hopefully everybody was okay.
Mostly farmland, and I don't think there was any injuries that I noted. So just a good visual show for folks up north. So
that's good. And so Ryan, actually, we were chit-chatting here, but a little bit before we went live. You actually live in Janesville, Wisconsin, which is the same town that my wife's sister lives in that area up there. So beautiful country.
Yeah, good old fashioned working town, Beloit, Janesville area. It's right off I-90, so we're kind of a hubbub for a lot of industrial companies, and as you know, I'm sure you've been here, you've seen a lot of things to do. So
absolutely, yeah. So so my wife's sister and her husband, they used to work, they worked for GM. So she's retired. I think he's about ready to retire with GM, and they've got a cool little cabin, or it's actually like it's a pontoon boat type thing, like a little houseboat that they have up on a lake up in Wisconsin, and that's their weekend retreat up there, which is super cool. I haven't been there. My wife's been there though. Yeah. Good morning. Speaking of pretty areas, Silver Spring, Maryland, very pretty. So Jim's in Chicago, not too far away from you. Very nice indeed. Hey, Tim's here. So I was in Tim's neck of the woods. I was in Tennessee, so there was a couple purposes for that. My wife and I, we wanted to go check it out. Is this somewhere in the future we may want to live? As everybody knows, right, we're out here in Colorado, so we wanted to take a look at Tennessee, and beautiful, absolutely beautiful country. And we focused on kind of the central, so Nashville east, and kind of the Appalachian region, which the locals say Appalachian, of course, and kind of did a whirlwind tour of that area. So we started in Nashville, did a big loop, ended up back in that area yesterday. So we got home late last night. So if I'm dragging here a little bit this morning, guys, I apologize. I'm in recovery mode for sure. But yeah, we really enjoyed it. One of the things I was telling Ryan before we got here on the chat is Tennessee drivers, crazy Tennessee drivers. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So Colorado's pretty bad, but Tennessee, yeah, it's a competition between those two, Ryan.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've spent some time in Tennessee. Yeah, it's crazy drivers, but it's a melting pot too with all the folks that have moved there. The native Tennessee folks versus the people that have moved there. Yeah, so you're getting people from everywhere. I'm sure you got some Jersey in there, you got some out west, so you're mixing.
Yeah, so they're bringing their craziness with them. Well, and our rental car too had Texas plates on it, so I'm sure that didn't help people as well.
No.
Yeah, Tim's right. Bad drivers. Yeah. And it was kind of surprising. So we were in the Chattanooga area and the Knoxville area. A lot of traffic. And you hear about it and you'll say, oh yeah, traffic here is kind of really grown. It may not be bad for you or from California, but compared with here in Colorado, very similar, right? Backups, and you're waiting in the same areas all the time, which is like, it's no fun, right? Nobody likes to do that for sure. So cool. So one of the things, if you're, oh, good, Michelle is here as well. Oh, 66 in Des Moines. Very nice.
Very nice.
Uh, so one of the things that we love to do here on the chat, everybody, of course, is join us this morning for a drink of your favorite beverage. I've got coffee because I got a nice bottle of water. Cheers, everyone. I'm getting very healthy. Nice
Getting
and
over a
fun.
cold, so I'm drinking some water. So my apologies. Tell Joe this morning.
So it looks like we got a lot of the regulars there here. So they are prepared for this. So, Ryan, are you prepared for the dad joke?
I'm as prepared as I always am. I always look forward to your dad joke.
All right. So I'm getting fancy here in the last few weeks. I've got graphics that go with my dad joke. So here we go. So Ryan, a little embarrassed to admit this, but the first step to recovery really is to admit that you have an issue. And I have a sanitizer addiction. I mean, it's really gotten out of hand.
Oh, jeez. Rubbing elbows with everyone. No, that's a good one. Weaving in
Yes,
the jokes early in the morning on this beautiful Friday.
and you got to keep them topical, right? So of course, Ryan, you're the VP of sales with the company, with a chemical company, right? So DeVere, so I wanted to make sure you get something topical, and it's hard. It's hard to find chemical company jokes. Not easy.
It is. No, yeah, no, we're just we're kind of living in our own lane, I suppose. But there's something to be had. I'm speaking with a gentleman a couple weeks ago, and he said he's an old school guy, been in the industry for a while, and he said chemical salesmen don't retire; they just dissolve away. So yeah, we're just out there. We're helping. We're doing the exactly. That's my own sad dad joke for the day. I stole that though. It's not mine.
That's a good one. I like that. And what's cool about the chat here too, and I alluded to this in the introduction, is that right we've really built kind of a cool community here. And Ryan's one of the regulars here on the show, along with Tim and other people here too. And it's not always easy to attend. So I always appreciate that people are able to carve out a little bit of time. And a lot, if you're on the road, like Tim's a road warrior, that then you can go on YouTube and watch it later if you want to, and MP3, listen to it in your car, all those fun things. But what's cool about this as well is bringing actual people who listen in on the chat and participate on as a guest. So thanks, Ryan, for coming on here. That's really cool that you're able to join us.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't know, like I had mentioned to you, I'm definitely grateful for you to invite me. All the industry experts that are on here. I mean, I'm in the industry, but we look up to folks like you and all the folks that are in the comments. I mean, we learn, we come on these shows, we're sharpening the saw all the time, and it's
absolutely.
So,
and that's as we were kind of talking about as we were prepping to get on the air here too, is that in life, and this just applies to everything. If you quit learning, you only got two choices: either you're learning and growing, or you're degrading. And you have to keep continually updating your skills. To your point, sharpen the saw. And who's that? Stephen Covey, right, from his book. And you have to be able to build those skills. You have to be able to learn from the people who've been there, done that, right? And if we're able to accomplish that, that's kind of the main thing. And kind of to start off, whenever I have a new guest on the chat here, Ryan, it's always a good idea to start with an introduction and let everybody know a little bit about who you are and what you do and all that fun stuff. Why don't you give people a little bit more information on you?
Sure. So I've been with DeVere for just going on 9 years. Previously to DeVere, I worked in the food industry, primarily in sanitation and quality. Here at DeVere, we do a lot of things. We primarily work across multiple sectors, but I was brought in to primarily work with our food processing customers. And that's what we do. We're out here to help. We custom tailored solutions. We're very customer focused. My role here again is to support our food processing folks with not just chemicals, but also expertise in how we can help them. It's about them. You come in to help a facility, and they ask you a question. It's for them. It's to help them be that blinder-free kind of look, because they're the industry professional at their plant. We're just coming in. We're giving that background support. So that's what we do. We're also celebrating 70 years. So DeVere, 1955, we're celebrating big 70 years now. Been based out of Janesville, Wisconsin since. And that's kind of my role in myself. And that's just kind of my background. I don't have much to really tout myself. I'm a food safety geek. I kind of, as most people, kind of fell backwards into this in this industry. You don't really grow up saying, "Oh, I want to be a food safety guy," but working in the plants earlier on in my career, it drew me, and I do live by what I always say. My food safety is my passion. So, that's what I bring to the table every day for our customers. And that's just, I guess, kind of a little abbreviated version of who I am. So,
no, and yeah, there's some really good things that you said in there. So number one is people who do what we're doing around food safety. It's something that you're drawn to. You do this, and part of the saying I have on this, Ryan, is that there's easier ways to make money than doing food safety, right? It's hard, it's a heavy burden, but we take that on and we help protect people because we want to make sure that children are safe and that the tragedy that happened with Dr. Darren Detweiler's son never happens again, and that we can prevent those things. It's not easy, that's for sure. And part of the challenge is if we're successful, nobody notices because everybody's fine. And they just assume that it happens that way. And that's definitely not the case. And I'd love from your background that, and I think this is really, really critical. And I think this is why in my business, I'm pretty successful in what I do with this as well, is we've been on the other side. We've been in plants. We understand what's going on. We've sat in the chair. We know the day-to-day challenges of getting the product out the door. Because reading through standards is one thing, but it's not the be all end all. There's much more to manufacturing than that. And I really think that's why when you look at everything FDA did with FSMA and all the rules in there, there's a very strong reason why they made sanitation a preventive control. They came in there and said, this is one of the top 5 things you should be focusing on in your plant. Everything else supports these things, and you need to have that, and that's sanitation. And it gets overlooked so much. And I see this time and time again. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we get into the chat here. But FDA will come to a plant and they will say, okay, great, you got your sanitation program. Yep, we use all these different chemicals and everything else. Great. How do you know they work? What do you mean? Right? Did you validate your process? And oh man, that's shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, there's absolutely no reason. And this is where your sanitation company comes in. It's just so absolutely critical that you build that partnership. The company you work with for your chemicals and your sanitation processes, they're just not selling you stuff. They are there to help you make sure that those systems work the way that they should work and that they're done in such an efficient way. I'm sure you see this all the time in the industry. Right? There's a belief on sanitation, more chemicals equals more clean. No, that is not true. Right?
And validation. What's validation? Well, we have these clean sheets that we pencil whip every time we clean. Okay. Yeah. So, but everyone, and it depends on the size of the facility too. Some of the smaller, medium size, they're professionals within, again, their own industry, they're siloed into their plant. But when we come in with that blinded look, we offer our support. We're not going to come in and try to, usurp their process. We're here to support. We're here to help. If they do need help with validations, if they need help with custom tailored trainings, things along those lines, non-corporate, like plant-specific trainings, that's where we thrive. And, I think, again, it's a passion. I'll probably use that word 10,000 more times before this is over. Our passion. We want to help in food safety and quality. It takes serious people, not just the chemical supplier, but just everyone encompassing. It takes serious approach. We take these things serious. I mean, all the people that are on the chat, I'm sure, how many countless hours have you spent on Teams calls and conference calls going over processes if you're, commissioning a new line or what. You're all in the efforts of food safety. It's serious. It's an approach, and we take it, very serious. And I think without those types of folks, we'd be in a world of hurt. So kudos again, shout out to everyone out there, food safety guys and gals. I mean, everyone's in the trenches, like you had mentioned, and we might not be seen, but we're doing our work, and it's good stuff. I'm just, again, honored to be part of just a small little part of kind of the small mafia, so to speak, that the food industry is. And, so. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and I think part of this, right, and this got, we were talking a lot about this during our conversations getting ready for the chat, is that it really encompasses, there's this kind of this abstract term that's out there, food safety culture. And part of that's really what we're talking about here. Number one of the things that you said when you were kind of explaining what you do, Ryan, is every company, every plant is unique. And so, I mean, that's kind of a warning sign for everybody out there. if you're talking with someone outside of your company, sanitation company consultants, I don't care who, and they say, oh yeah, I've got this template that you can use, and then you can just change the name on the top and you're all good. No, never. Every plant is unique. And even within a company who is supposed to have, very similar processes that come from corporate, guess what? No, every plant is unique. There's always variances, always modifications. You have to get boots on the ground. You have to go into that plant and say, all right, let's walk the floor. Show me what's going on here. Let's see how we can help you in these processes. Because one of the sayings, Ryan, that I use quite a bit is equipment doesn't make product, people do. And you can have the best equipment in the world, but if the people don't know how to run it and they don't know how to clean it, it's going to be a very short path to failure.
Absolutely. Yeah. How many times have you heard on the plant floor, if you get new folks that come into your sanitation group, and usually sanitation's the entry level in the plant, and how am I supposed to clean it? Well, we'll read that SOP. I think SOPs, SSOPs are wonderful. I think one of the things we had a lot of success with doing in the past, and we help our customers with, is kind of create a playbook. Each piece of equipment, sanitary designers came a long way again, but there's still dinosaur pieces of equipment out there that have a lot of sanitary design issues. And it's a valid question. Hey, how am I supposed to clean this? And then again, you come into the whole, redeveloping SSOPs. What's changed in your process? Have you had any issues with this? Are you doing an extended run? Have you changed? Is the soil a little different? There's so many things to be considered. And it's awesome to go in and kind of do that. It's an investigation. Every time we're going in and we're looking at a plant that ran the same product on the line for X amount of years, and then they switch up, and then they just think those SSOPs are going to apply to no, exactly. So there's so much that goes into what we do, and we clean to run, right? I mean,
well, and that's a good point, because I think that's really around kind of our introductory part here that we're talking about relative to food safety culture, is do the work up front. So for example, how many times has engineering or maintenance gone out? So the plant manager says, hey, we need a new piece of equipment. We need to expand the line. We're going to start making this new product. I don't have a lot of money in the budget. Go and find something cheap. So the engineering guys go out and they look at the auction sites or whatever, and they find a used piece of equipment. They're like, nice, awesome deal, right? And that's their criteria. They're looking at it. They're looking for a screaming deal. Well, it's probably a screaming deal for a good reason. It's probably been sitting in the boneyard in the back of a plant somewhere out in the field. God knows what products it was making.
Hollow rollers, bad welds, yards.
Yeah. It's out there for a reason. It's obsolete. To your point, 3A design has got all these problems and flaws with the equipment, bad welds. It's made of aluminum. Who knows? And then all of a sudden, as a quality manager, you come bebopping in the plant one morning and you see this new piece of equipment on the floor, and you're like, what the hell is that? Right. And the engineering guys are like, yeah, look what we did. Woo. And you're like, oh, right. And up front, right? That's why you need to have a really strong food safety team in your plant. This is nothing changes in this plant until we give it the okay.
Yep.
So engineering, if you think you found a new piece of equipment, great. That's fantastic. We're all on the same team here. Let's put it in front of the group and see what problems there are before we actually pull the trigger and spend our money. And that's where your team can come in handy too, right?
Yes, absolutely. No, sanitary design reviews is a big thing that we do take serious. A lot of times it's driven by the company itself, but again, kind of having that blinder free look as your chemical supplier, because what's the number one thing that the engineers will say? Put something pH neutral on that line to clean. No, again, finding the right chemistries, finding the right techniques, looking at the old SSOPs, if you're lucky to have one for that old piece of equipment or new piece of equipment, when you're redeveloping or just creating from the ground floor up, there's so much to be considered, and having that strong culture is huge. I've been very fortunate in the companies I've worked in the food industry in the past, where they had that religion. They had that nothing will start until that full sanitary design review has been looked at, not just by plant level, corporate level, platform on up, and saying, okay, this checks out, this doesn't check out. What are we going to do about that? Now, all of a sudden, that great deal those engineers got are like, oh, now we got to go look at new belting or a new cooling tunnel. We got to look at, this, or we have to fix. Exactly. We're not commissioning this line until ABC and whatever is fixed.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, and part of this too is don't think that these flaws just happen with old equipment. New equipment, right? And you had referenced 3A standards earlier, right? These sanitary design standards in the US that have been developed for creating equipment that's cleanable.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of really cool equipment from Europe. They didn't even think about that. And the engineering guys are sourcing out and inspecting equipment in Europe that if they bring it to the US is not going to work.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the larger companies in Europe, Bosch or whoever, right, they understand that, and you need to work with them. And to your point, a line is a process, and anywhere within that process, this is the number one rule with any type of a process in your plant, right? So receiving, processing, packaging, shipping out the door. That's your core process. Somewhere in that process is a bottleneck. It's something in there that doesn't have the right flow rate, something doesn't have the right line speed. Those need to be buffered to make up for the packaging line at the end because the corrugate machine can't quite keep up, or whatever. There's a false belief out there that you can perfectly balance that line. Nope, never going to happen. Never. I have yet to see there. I challenge anybody to show me this. I've never seen a line that's perfectly balanced. And when you install a new piece of equipment in that line, guess what? You've just blown that up and you've thrown in a new variable that's going to affect the bottleneck. It's just going to move. It's going to move somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to be considered. And then you get that quality and food safety team, production team, kind of looking at how we're going to, get this back to baseline. And there's so many, again, and I wouldn't say we're the bad guys, but we're holding things accountable. We're making sure things are, to standard. Again, we're trying to run, we're trying to roll through. And I know, just again, kind of going back to like commissioning a new line, we want to make sellable product, right? I mean, that's our end goal. But there's processes that we have to go through. And if there's issues, we're going to address them. And that might add a little bit of timeline. Of course, it's not ideal for, production, but we got to do what we got to do. And, good food safety culture companies, they get that. And I would say the bulk load of folks are right on line with that. And, it's serious. We want to make sure that we're making safe, saleable product. And we take this very serious. So.
Yeah, and this is where it's really important, and this is that food safety culture piece again, is the plant is a team. It's not quality versus operations. It's everybody trying to put things together, and you said that very well. If the goal in the plant is to produce 10,000 cases a day of product, the goal is to produce 10,000 cases of product that meet spec and are safe, right? If you can't get that second part right, the first part doesn't matter. If you're just making 10,000 cases a day to send to the landfill, why make it in the first place? Right? It has to make spec. And it's kind of one of those unwritten assumptions that everybody just assumes that's the case. And the team needs to be reminded of that every now and then. And that's where quality really within the plant, it's kind of that voice out there that's kind of chirping in everybody's ear, reminding them of your role in this plant, maintenance, engineering, sanitation, operations, quality, purchasing, it doesn't matter who it is, are to work together. Your goal is not just what you're doing in your specific role. It's to produce that product. And that's part of our job, is to remind people of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about U2 maintenance, folks. I will say, and we've done some trainings for customers, and I always keep it in the back of my mind to remind people, having a good relationship with maintenance and your engineering is huge. We don't get a lot of things fixed without those guys, right? So having that strong culture, and we all know maintenance can kind of have the brash, oh, what are we fixing now? Or, oh, didn't we just do this? Or I'll get to it. We put a work order in, it sits there forever. Really having kind of that rock star within that group is huge to partner with, because when we're trying to get things done, when we're trying to fix things that we've noticed, you need that collaboration. I can't say it enough. And I mention it all the time to folks. How's your relationship with maintenance? Most of the time, like that. Okay. And sometimes we kind of butt heads a little bit because they're getting a little upset. We're having to come out, but having that relationship is huge. And I'm sure everyone that's listening can agree. Make that partnership strong.
Yeah. In one of my first leadership roles in quality and food safety at the company, where I was running everything for the company, was maintenance. And I found out, and so the maintenance supervisor, and we became friends. I found out that they had the ability in the maintenance shop to track all the machines. So they could see when pumps were on and what temperatures were at RTDs and what flow rates were through all the different equipment. You could sit, he could sit at his desk and check all that stuff out. And he was looking at it from a maintenance standpoint, right? Is this equipment all running properly? Once I found that out, I was like, oh my God. So you can tell me at these points in the processes what was working, what wasn't working, and everything else. I'm like, yep. So if I had a mold problem on, let's say, cream cheese, and I could go in and look at the temperatures in the process, I'm like, oh, look at that. This piece of equipment was down for a half hour and the temperatures dropped a little bit when the product, oh, there we go. There's my problem. Golden. I never would have found out that information because, to your point, Ryan, I'm not going to see that by looking what the operators are filling out on their sheet, other than equipment down, right? Not going to really tell me much. That relationship I had with maintenance was key, absolutely key to success in that company.
Absolutely. No, we do food safety culture trainings and always suggest, hey, get some of your rock star maintenance guys that want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
Because in my past life, we do, you do your internal audits, your walkthroughs, but also always suggested, hey, either it's the manager, they're usually busy, but just find the team leader, like, hey, let's go walk lines 4 and 6 this afternoon. Let's kind of, I have some things that I put work orders in for. And again, a lot of times in a perfect world, everyone will go, oh yeah, I can't wait. Sometimes they look at it, okay, this is going to be more work or this or that. But when you develop that relationship and you guys go out and walk those lines and you're like, hey, this I noticed, this belting, this slat, or whatever it might be, they'll at least note it and they know and they can communicate it down the line. It just kind of saves a lot of.
Well, this machine's making a weird noise type notes. Right? Yeah. Those are super valuable. Well, and earlier to my comment to kind of reinforce the point I made earlier is people make product, not machines. Everybody sees in plants differentials between shifts. One shift always does better than the other, right? Every plant, right? Again, right? There's these golden rules in plants. That's a people difference. That's not a machine difference. They don't bring in all new equipment. And the thing that always used to drive me nuts, Ryan, and this kind of gets into our next topic around this, is first shift would spend, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why this was. First shift would spend a lot of time, and in this particular example, in this company I was at, the machines were very hands-on. So you had this very complicated, very old filler, and the operators that ran these machines had been there for 10, 20, 30 years. And you would see the operators doing this, and they would be, just constantly fiddling with dials, checking the product, fiddling. And by the end of that out, at the end of their shift, everything was just dialed in. Then that machine was rocking and rolling. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Second shift comes in. What's the first thing they do? They change every damn setting.
Yep.
Oh, what are you doing? This machine, no. This is how I run the machine. It's like, oh, no. What do you, no. It's like, no, they spent, right? And so it's that people dynamic, and it just would drive me nuts. And that gets into some of those challenges. And I think this is a great opportunity because, like, you're like me, right? You get to see a lot of different industries, a lot of different plants, a lot of different processes, and you're able to kind of collate this information. So what are some of those challenges that you see out there with companies that kind of pop up all the time regarding sanitation? And how can they mitigate those type of issues?
Yeah, there's a lot to that, but I guess just for example's sake, kind of looking at their crew, when you go into a facility and there's some issues, is production labor being used for sanitation? Do they have their own sanitation group? Do they use a third party? How's the turnover looking? I mean, there's so many different things when it comes to, like, well, we clean line 5 and 4 every other day, and this crew works better, and then this crew, it's all new. They don't know what they're doing. We really need you to come on and do some training. Okay, so we'll do it. And then what does everyone else know? Maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, that whole entire crew has changed over. So retaining talent, so to speak, is very difficult. You put a lot of passion into your trainings to get folks, to where they need to be to at least achieve sanitation effectiveness. And then you start to look at the different types of plants that you're dealing with. Again, obviously more high risk plants, leafy greens and fresh produce. We're looking at a lot of other plants that have allergen concerns when you're looking at adjacent line cleaning, things along those lines. The list goes on and on. There are always going to be sanitation challenges as long as the team within the plant is committed to streamlining that process and doing it the correct way every time, and then keeping that training going and keeping the folks informed. A lot of the times decisions are being made by team leaders on the line, sanitation leader. Sometimes the sanitation manager won't even be there during the cleans. And I can say I've been guilty of that too. You're not there. How are you managing your process? Well, everything checked out. We started the lineup on time. Everything was good. Where are you swabbing? Are you switching your swab points? Are you looking at those analytics in detail? So there's so much that goes into when it comes to, I guess, just explaining challenges within sanitation. But man, there's a lot of good professionals out there that I will say that take it very serious and they want to get better. But there's a lot of challenge too, right? I forgot the gentleman that's on LinkedIn, Tino, I believe he posted something about the turnover rate in sanitation, and I don't quote me, but I think it was like 60%, something crazy. And I can agree. It's tough. It's tough to keep that core talent. Now you will have your rock stars that stay within sanitation, and they generally move to a leadership role, and then they, bestow their knowledge on their crew. But just keeping that knowledge in place, knowing that you can clean on all the different lines. That's also an issue too. There's a guy that's like, hey, I only clean this kettle. I only clean this belting or this sheeter or this proof. Like, this is all I do. Getting that cross training is always heavily suggested for the teams. And again, sanitation's nitty gritty. It's not glamorous work. And I know this is a stolen quote too, but they're the offensive linemen, so to speak. They do their job. Again, you don't hear about anything. As soon as something screws up, it messes with production. Hey, who's the first people that get thrown under? Hey, it's sanitation. What's going on? So making sure that those programs are buttoned up and that we can go in there and just kind of be that blinder-free guidance to ensure that they're doing consistent.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so we were talking about how quality isn't noticed. It's the same with sanitation. Sanitation are the unsung heroes, and they just assume that everything's going to get cleaned on time. And when they're looking at budgets every year, what's the first group that has its time cut? Right? Well, all right, it takes us 8 hours to clean. Can we do that in 6 hours? And it's not a question. That's an order from the plant manager. That is, you will do it in 6 hours. So now you got to figure out how. And I think it's really important to mention in this as well too, is the different strategy you can have around this. And Tim and I have talked about this on here as well too, is the recognition that this is probably the toughest job in the plant, is working in sanitation. You're working at night in a lot of cases, and that's something we'll talk about here too. You're working at night. It's hot. It's wet. It's sticky. It's smelly. You're busting your knuckles on bolts, just trying to get everything done. And at the end of the night, you go home and you're just absolutely exhausted. And then you get a call after you fall asleep because the quality manager's got a question, and you're just like, right? And you just keep repeating that. So part of that is making sure in your plants that you have a good strategy, and that you're forward-looking enough to make sure that crew understands, hey guys, we recognize that this is hard. That's why you guys get a differential in hourly wages versus the rest of the plant, because you're that critical. And guess what? If you succeed in sanitation, you're going to know this plant better than anybody. And you will know how equipment works. You will know how things function. You will know it inside and out. That's a pathway forward, if you want to, for future leadership roles within this company, because many a sanitation person has come up through the ranks to lead a company because they understand the nitty gritty. And part of that then too is, why do you have sanitation on third shift? Why not have sanitation on first shift and then have the second and third shifts be production? Why? Right? Sanitation is critical. Why bury it? It's one of those things that's absolutely critical to your process. And if quality comes out and does their inspections after a sanitation process, and everything is looking great, recognize, and hey, make sure that the plant understands and measure those KPIs and that you celebrate that. Don't shove sanitation off into a corner of, this is just something we got to do. Huge mistake.
Absolutely. No, I think you hit it on the head too with incentivizing the crew and being genuine about it too. We're going to do a pizza party, but a lot of folks, if you take a group of people, and again, I'm not going to throw a number behind it, but if you take a group of folks, there's always going to be those rock stars, so to speak, that take a lot of pride in their work. Creating competitions, who can get the less APC count on these swabs? What line's going to win? Incentivizing. It might sound corny sometimes, but depending on what you reward them with. But people take pride in what they do, and when you recognize them and you don't just go, oh, attaboy, or just, hey, good job, like you say, hey, I really like what you did there. Do you think that you could train so and so over here and show him exactly what you just did, because that was awesome? And then that people that take pride in their work, and again, I like to believe that there's more people that do than don't. That goes such a long way. A simple little conversation with someone and saying, hey, or you've been doing this so awesome for years. Like, man, can you tell me a little bit about how you do this? And it's just the simple conversations. And I think, kind of going back to food safety culture and all the trainings that we do when it comes to plant specific training, it's just getting on the floor, talking to the people, giving them the recognition, letting them know, like, hey, like you said, you are absolutely critical. You are the pillars that hold this plant up. And without you creating sanitation effectiveness at each and every night or whenever you clean, this ship does not sail. So yeah, I could go on that, but yeah,
absolutely. And so it's a great conversation with Tim, Michelle, and Cortland that's going here on the side, which is awesome, guys. Keep it up. Is that prioritization, right? And that applies to everything. In that sanitation process, there are things that are musts, right? Anything that's a food contact surface must be pristine, must be spotless, must be perfect. That's where you focus. And if you find issues in that area, to Michelle's point, that's where work instructions, and that's where processes come in place, and that's where work orders come into play, where those things need to be taken care of immediately. If there are bearings that are going out inside a positive pump, who's going to see it? The sanitation guys are going to see it. And they need to work really closely with the maintenance team on that to make sure those things get fixed before they become a problem in that core process. Is it important, like Michelle is saying here, after an audit, to take care of that cracked glass that's in that back warehouse that nobody uses? Yeah, eventually, right, to pass the audit. Is it core? No. Prioritize things within that. Yeah, get it taken care of because of the audit, sure. But the plant needs to have a prioritization process, and sanitation needs to be part of that process. They need to be the group saying, hey, guys, the PM schedule doesn't look like it's correct in this area. We need to go in and change some gaskets on those overhead lines, right? Which nobody likes. Nobody likes going up on the scissor lift to do that. Has to be done. The maintenance guys can work with these sanitation guys to say, hey, listen, these cheapo gaskets that you're buying ain't working. Right? They're falling apart. You guys need to spend a little extra money and get the Teflon gaskets in these areas. It's going to save us in the long run. And really, it kind of comes back to what we're talking about here with food safety culture and how you're looking at the design of the plant. It always comes back to pay me now, pay me later. Okay, fine. Buy a cheap ass piece of equipment now, buy cruddy gaskets that don't work, cut corners on chemicals. You may look pretty good for the budget this month or this quarter, but it's going to bite you. It's going to get you.
It'll get you eventually. And we do not need that. Cutting corners, not only is it pose a huge food safety risk, it can pose a huge personal safety risk to the folks in the plant. But yeah, I agree with that statement. Prioritization, absolutely, 100%. You have to focus on what matters most first, and then process down later for the other corrective actions that will still be on your list that you're still going to want to get done. But yes, absolutely, 100% agree with that.
Yep. So as somebody that has a wide scope and you get to see a lot of different stuff out there, Ryan, what are some of those industries that you're seeing that have? I mean, we've got the top three every year for recalls, right? We got our allergens, we got our pathogens, and we got our foreign material. It's always those guys, and it repeat. They just switch order every year. What are some of those industries in the food sector that have the hardest time cleaning stuff? What are you seeing out there?
And well, I guess I could speak of a recent facility we worked with. It was a chip manufacturer, and they had some tough soils to get rid of. I think one of the issues, a lot of the grease just casts everywhere, burnt on soils. I mean, just some heavy duty approaches, big equipment, takes a lot of manpower to get these lines clean, dangerous, very dangerous as well. You're circulating caustics, and it's very, again, going back to the sanitation world, it's hot, it's steamy, it was a very, very tough plant to get to where those folks wanted to be as far as the comfortability of saying, okay, this works, that doesn't work. The solution's there. How do we approach to make this a little quicker. Again, going back to production, going, hey, we need these lines started up no later than 6:45, product rolling out at 7. But things happen, things break, folks make mistakes, or half the crew isn't there. But yeah, when it came to this soil load, that was a tough one. And in industry as alone, bakeries, of course, my background's in bakeries, dirty. There's a lot of crevice, a lot of hidden material that you got to go in. And then also too, I think with regardless of the type of soils that are difficult, is also getting the sanitation crew to be their own QA, kind of going in and opening up areas and looking at things and going, hey, when will we clean this? Does this get checked by QA? Is this on the clean sheets? Is this, looking at all those pieces that maybe, a third party auditor might come in and kind of bust their chops a little bit and say, hey, what about this? What about that? Taking total ownership of that equipment through tough soils. We're looking at, a lot of different processes out there. But yeah, I'd have to say that one, those are tough. And again, it goes back to the culture of the plant too. Are they willing to take things to the next level? Are you willing to sit down and do a sanitation observation with them and go in there and not be a parrot on their shoulder, but also kind of looking at what they're doing and then, getting a solution to get those guys rolling. So in short, I guess long answer.
Yeah, I can see why, like manufacturing tortilla chips and things. Well, yeah, what a lot of challenges. So you've got, these giant vats of hot oil that are very expensive, right? Just the cost of the oil in the vats themselves. So you want to retain as much of that oil as you can, and you want to use it as long as you can. And that oil itself, you're introducing carbohydrates into a hot oil. So now you're producing acrylamines and all kinds of other fun stuff. And that's just coating everything. And if you're going to go down on those processes and clean those filters and all those things associated with it, that's a big deal. And the plant's got to go down for that. You have to drain all those systems, ship off that oil, bring in all new oil. And now imagine too, with everything that's going on with the government, with RFK Jr. and the types of oil that you're using. So now all of a sudden, let's say that you've been using a mixture of different types of vegetable oils, rapeseed and palm oil, or whatever else you're using within that vat to produce those chips the way that you want. Now all of a sudden the industry, nobody wants that on the label anymore. And now all of a sudden the R&D guys want beef tallow or who knows what, right, associated with that. Now that entire process has changed. That's not as simple as changing that oil out. All these things, and this gets into what we're talking about with our themes today, is all of these type of things all get back to food safety culture and how you manage these things. So Cortland is saying here, chip plants, lots of THF used in chip. Oh, wrong chips. So Cortland, you're a crazy man.
Love Cortland. Cortland always gives me likes for my comments. I love Cortland.
Cortland's the best.
All the what's great are just awesome.
And we talked about this before too. What's great about having Cortland on here is he brings a different perspective, right? We're in this food world. He's in a bigger circle associated with pharma and medical device and laboratory testing. He's been there, done that, and he can see. And this is where we all benefit each other. So I'm always really happy that Cortland is on here for the chat as well.
I learned something going on here as always.
So one of the things that we kind of touched on a little bit that I want to circle back with, Ryan, is how and who is cleaning. So you see different tactics in plants. You see dedicated sanitation crews. You see third-party cleaning now. You also see individuals who clean their own lines. So they work a shift, and then it's their responsibility to clean the line at the end of the shift to get it ready for the next shift. Any comments or thoughts around those different strategies?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, it's best to have your own dedicated sanitation crew, obviously, because you can get that repetition, that consistency. I've worked at plants that have had both, and working on lines, working 12 hours a day. Depending on the length of the run on those lines, you got to end your week with, a 4 to 6 hour, very nasty. So I guess, again, going back to consistency, that labor changes a lot due to turnover. So you get a lot more questioning on cleaning. So you get that variable, if this line's supposed to take 4.5 hours, it might take 5, a little bit over. It might get done quicker. And then you're going, hey, what's going on here? So now, so production labor, it's tough, but I understand too, with just the turnover rates and how things have been, for many years now. It's not the most ideal, but a lot of plants have to roll that way. And then you start looking at third-party cleaners, who again will bring a good level of expertise. A lot of them are previous sanitation workers, of course, right, in the food facilities. But I guess that I hate to use the word control, but just that disconnect between your crew and another crew. Sometimes the communication between their management and then your own management team can be kind of convoluted a little bit. I don't want to speak out of turn and sound bashing, but I've heard war stories, and I've heard, hey, it's awesome, out of sight, out of mind, which is not a mentality you want to have. And that's another kind of con to those, because you're just trusting that a whole group of folks are just going to consistently keep your lines clean. Ownership aspect again. A lot of those cleaners, they're not just cleaning your plant, they're at other plants as well. So there's so much to go into that, but I'll kind of leave it at that. It's obviously you want your own sanitation crew. You want to be able to folks.
I think this gets back to, again, our theme around why this is so important for your food safety culture, is that you need to understand this. So number one is it's control. And really Rod Wheeler and what the work he does around security and things like this comes to front of mind. If you're using a third party to clean your plant, who are you letting in your plant? Who are they? How are you vetting this? We know sanitation has a lot of turnover. So with a third party, probably even more so. So who has access to your processes? What is that third party? If you're considering this, what are you actually allowing them to clean? What you might want to do is have a bifurcated approach and say, okay, we'll use a third party to do the things that we don't have time to do. We're going to bring them in to clean the overhead rafters. We're going to bring them in to clean ductwork. We're going to bring them in to clean the warehouse, non-critical areas. But we're going to have a dedicated sanitation crew that's going to be involved with the central core process where we have actual food contact surfaces, because we can't farm that out.
No,
go ahead.
Just kind of going back to, specialty cleaning, silo cleanings, all those types of things. Absolutely. Dedicated cleaning companies are awesome for those type of things. Confined cleaning. You don't want to have your folks jump into a confined cleaning space or a confined space. It's awesome. But yes, I agree. Kind of shy away back to just keeping your folks doing most critical parts. So,
right. That's what, I talk about this in the book, right? Is in my book, is that every plant has a core process. You bring in stuff, you transform it in some way, you then package it up and you ship it out the door. Every plant is the same, right? So tortilla chips, right? You bring in corn and whatever else, you make tortillas, and then you fry it up and you package it out and you ship it out to the customer. That's how you make money. That if that process doesn't work and it's not working flawlessly and producing product correctly, nobody gets paid and the factory shuts down. Everybody else supports that process. QA, procurement, sanitation, everybody supports that process. And you need to have that mentality with that of how do we make sure that process is working correctly? And if you're bringing in a third-party organization with sanitation that is directly impacting that process, you need to be extremely careful when you do that. Because don't forget, this third-party group that's coming in, they're a business too. Their objectives may not align with you. Their job is to beat out the competition and get that contract with you to clean your plant. So what corners are they cutting to do that? What chemicals are they using? Are they being diluted in some? You don't necessarily know these things. So yeah, there's positives with using third parties. Absolutely. But man, you have to be careful.
Yes. No, I 100% agree. I was at a plant, I don't know, I think back in February, I was talking with the quality manager. We're doing actually food safety culture training. And he had to leave because there was a new sanitation leader for a third party that they were using. And he kind of was griping a little bit, they're always changing leadership. And now there's a new, group of guys that are going to be coming in. And I don't want to speak to the extent of what that cleaning crew would do, but I would assume they're the entire plant. They're cleaning all their lines, and just could see the frustration on his face a little bit, just like, okay, we got to onboard this guy, and we got to make sure that everything stays consistent, and the management piece behind it is difficult because, again, they work for a different company. And go back to your point, who are you letting in? We know our turnover within our own plant is, whatever percent. How is it for them? You probably assume a little bit higher. Getting a little into something that you probably didn't think was going to be as the nitty gritty is, cleaning a facility that is just absolutely destroyed, and then you leave, and then you go to another plant the next day. And, it's tough work, and it makes sense. So,
well, and sanitation is a hyper specialized field. If you work in a dairy plant, there's certain things that you need to know how to clean and do well. If you're on a third-party sanitation crew and you're 1 week you're cleaning a dairy plant, and the next week you're cleaning a tortilla chip plant, and the next week you're cleaning a produce leafy green facility, no, right? Those skills do not translate. And if you have that high level of turnover, you're not going to get the results. So I think, again, right, as I mentioned earlier, this is a little of pay me now, pay me later again, is you think you're saving money on the front end. Oh, we're going to hire this third-party sanitation company to come in and we'll save all this money. Yeah, that's what the plant manager sees as a top line. But how much time is now being used to monitor these guys? How much time is being used to go back and clean the stuff that they didn't do a job cleaning? How much time is being spent supervising them, et cetera, right? All those hidden things. Because if I'm the quality manager, I've only got X number of hours in a week to do stuff. And I don't care if I'm working 16 hours a day, there's still a limit. And how that time is being allocated is important. So if I'm spending all my time bird dogging what that third-party sanitation crew is doing because I don't trust them, that effort is wasted. So the plant manager needs to understand that, and that culture needs to be addressed in those ways.
100%. Yeah. It all goes back to culture, right? I mean, it's such
absolutely. There's definitely a theme. Yeah, that's
used so much. You got to have a good culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. We all understand it, but to actually take those ideas and then putting them into motion, that's where strategy comes into, where good leadership comes into, and it's not easy. I think we've all made mistakes. I've made so many mistakes in the leadership role, but doubling down on, hey, I'm going to get better, or this is how I'm going to approach this situation. To create that culture, you have to create that reciprocity with your team. You go 100 miles for them, they're going to go 101, and then you just keep upping the ante to get just that synergy. Just having a group of folks that just really want to get after it, I think is so much easier said than done. There's so much.
Absolutely.
And again, fighting that turnover, that's so tough. I know in a perfect world, everyone would be working at a plant for, until retirement age. And, Larry and Ann, they've been on. That's not the realities. And it's also sometimes for good too. They're moving up. You're getting people, set up for success in other leadership roles. But man, it's so important. And, all the recalls we still see nowadays that we all see all the time. So we got to start turning that gear towards the, I don't know how you feel on that. It's just all this put into food safety and processes and everything that we do, and we still just continuously see so much, and it's a culture thing. I have to believe in it. It's just, in my opinion.
Well, and this gets back to why you need to think about this in terms of people. How would you like to be locked into a job where you're doing the same thing every day for the next 10, 20 years? No. To your point earlier, Ryan, if you're a superstar and you want to learn and grow and improve and excel in what you do, you're going to get bored, which means you're going to leave. So those people need to see a path forward. It's like, hey, welcome to sanitation. You're on the best position you can be in this company to succeed. Why? Because of stuff we talked about earlier. You're going to know this plant. Oh, and by the way, if you're really good at this job, there's other opportunities here that are going to come up over time as well. So keep at it. People need that motivation. And you also have to understand why people do things. It could very well be when you talk with members of your team, they like being on sanitation. They like being on third shift. It works out well. They come home, they take the kids to school. They watch the kids, in the morning and then the wife gets ready. And, there's those family dynamics at home that take place. Odds are they're on third shift for a reason. So you need to understand those. And that's hypercritical that the supervisor and the manager for the sanitation crews understand that. And they're able to communicate that information to the rest of the company. And they champion, to your point earlier, right? They champion their teams to make sure that people understand that and people watch. So if there's somebody on that sanitation crew who is really good and they get promoted to supervisor and then they go into the management team and then they move into another role on the plant, people see that and like, oh, yeah, okay. They care. They care about the team. You want to kill that, keep those people on those teams, and then hire somebody from the outside who's now their boss. They're like,
yeah,
well, fine.
Like whatever.
I see how important I am here.
Yeah, and that's always the biggest thing that people always say in the plant, or any, not even just any place. They never tell me anything. Well, I don't know. Oh, the big one. Oh, I brought that up to so and so, and then it just becomes a blame game. Trying to eliminate those types of conversations within your crew is just paramount to success.
Well, and this is kind of like one of our final points here that we wanted to talk on with the chat is those things out there. And I've got a few things I watch out for. I'm curious to see what you look out for, Ryan. Is those things out there that kill food safety culture quickly? What are just like a knife into the heart? What are those things out there that you see that kill food safety culture the quickest?
Again, there's a lot I could go in on this. I would just basically have to say, just the facilities, the dynamics within the facility, management from top down, kind of looking at, who's leading your crew, how do they treat their folks, and then you go back to, again, championing your team. People that are not heard are not going to be rock stars within their current role or the future. So just that ABC mentality every single day. It's just rinse and repeat. There's no reach out. There's no recognition. There's no nothing. And if there is something, it generally comes off not genuine, and people dismiss it immediately. So kind of just that chain of communication between management, their crew, their teams, their team leaders. How are their team leaders communicating to your team? So if you're a manager, you got X amount of team leaders underneath you. How are they communicating with your team? You should really care how they treat your team. Yeah, they might be your pit bull on the line, making sure things are going, ensuring that they're communicating respectfully and the right way, and gaining insights to bring back to the management team so that everyone's in the understanding. They're in the know. There's no surprises. People should always be on the know. You have to know, whether it's a simple visual board or if it's just toolbox talk conversation with your team. We have to all put this together. And feeling left out, I think, is a huge piece that people just don't take ownership, because they're like, who cares? I don't care. Why should I care? So,
yeah, management doesn't care. Why should I? So it all comes back to that cultural piece of it, and how management presents this and how they share those objectives. If management says that our goal is to get out 10,000 cases a day and they leave it there, that's what people, okay, I got it, right? My job is to push the product out the door, and that's what the supervisors do. And you get what you pay for, and it's going to cause a problem over time. So with that, we're almost out of time here, Ryan. And so number one thing with new guests here on the chat is time flies, right?
Yeah, it really did.
It's crazy. So as we're kind of summarizing here, what would you like to leave people here with today?
I guess just everyone in the industry, we just keep doing what we're doing and just never stopping. I guess the pursuit for a recall-free year should never end in your mind, even if you feel like it's impossible. I think no matter how small the piece that you play in the role, again, the people that I look up to, I mean, Brian, you're one of them. There's so many people that I've been, following and learning from over the years. And I think if we just have that mentality and just keep moving forward and continuously learning, always sharpening the saw, always looking for new innovations, technologies, and again, we don't have any time, but AI, just looking at all these things together as a community, because we are a community. I don't care if we've never met each other. You're in the food industry and your food safety, your sanitation, we're in a community together. If we continually work together, it's only going to benefit the future. So I guess I'll keep my long-winded answer there. So
no, and that, I think that's a great way to summarize it, because I think part of it is don't think, and we see this all the time in what we do, is don't think that you have to solve everything. No, you can't. Nobody can. Reach out, use outside experts. That's why you're there, right? You're just not there to say, okay, here's your invoice for the chemicals. See you next month. No, your job is to help them in that process. And that value add is extremely important. And reaching out and understanding that I don't have to have all the answers, but I know the people in this particular area who do. And I'm picking up the phone and I'm going to call them and I'm going to get that assistance that I need. Don't be so proud that you think you have all the answers, because pride goeth before the fall, right? And you will stumble. And it's going to be a really bad awakening when that happens.
100%.
So with that, guys, we're gonna bring our chat here to a close for this week. Fantastic. Good job, Ryan. Good job. And thank you, everybody. Fantastic comments in the chat. Oh man, I love this crew of people that we have here that join us with all their good comments, contributing. So they're not on camera, but they're part of the chat as well. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate all that you do. And with that, we're going to bring our chat to a close. Thank you again, Ryan, for joining us. So, of course, with DeVere Company. And so if people want to reach out to you, Ryan, what's the best way to reach you?
rdunn at deverechemical.com or customer service at deverechemical.com. We're always available. I think that's one of our best attributes as a company. We're customer focused, and we're always available. We'll instantly respond. I think that's one thing that some folks can say with other companies sometimes, not just in the chemical industry, but when people are reaching out, they need support, we're always there. So
awesome. And that's why you guys have been around for 70 years. So there you go. So with that, we will then close this out. And thanks everybody for joining us. And of course, we'll be back here next week at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll bring another amazing guest like Ryan onto the chat to talk with you. So in the meantime, have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Great weather out there. Sounds like Wisconsin is amazing. So have a good time out there. And we'll see everybody back here next Friday. Have a good one, everybody. See you then.
Bye-bye.